The morning was perfect in that dangerous way, the kind that makes you forget how cruel people can be. Miguel Reyes was sunk deep in his creaky Adirondack chair, boots up on the porch rail, coffee steaming, fog sliding through the valley like a living thing. Pine, smoke, silence, peace. Then came the knock. Not polite, not neighborly. Three sharp raps that sounded more like a summons than a greeting. On his porch stood Veronica Lattimore, chairwoman of the Silver Ridge Homeowners Collective. Cream suit, pearl earrings, that fake weaponized smile people wear when they're about to ruin your day. Behind her, Grant, the bald vice president with dead eyes, and two other board members dressed like they'd never touched soil that wasn't fertilized by money. Veronica held a leather folio to her chest like it was sacred law. "Mr. Reyes," she said, dragging out his name, "we've come to discuss your future." The way she said it made his stomach tighten. She didn't wait for an invitation, just stepped forward, scanning his land like a realtor at a funeral. "Silver Ridge has voted unanimously," she continued, "to acquire your property for community development. Your barns, livestock, smoke, they're disrupting the aesthetic of our luxury district." Grant smirked. Veronica flipped open the folio and slid out glossy renderings, spas, golf greens, infinity pools, all stamped over Miguel's land. "We're offering you $3 million, generous considering the condition. $3 million for 400 acres, 2 freshwater springs, mineral land, his grandfather's homestead carved from wilderness in 1949. They thought he was a hillbilly with goats. They had no idea he was a former urban planning consultant who'd built resorts worth more than their entire neighborhood. Miguel just smiled calmly. "Why don't you come in for coffee?" And in that moment, Veronica thought she'd already won. She had no clue she just knocked on the wrong door. Inside the cabin, Veronica perched on the edge of Miguel's handmade cedar sofa like it might infect her. Her eyes drifted around the room. Elk antlers on the wall, family photos, carved shelves, old maps. To her, it looked less like a home and more like a museum of things she planned to erase. "Charming," she said, which in HOA language meant temporary. Grant was already mentally redesigning the place. You could almost see the spa blueprint loading behind his eyes. Veronica slid the portfolio across the table with theatrical precision. Contracts, appraisals, renderings of Miguel's land transformed into a glossy playground for rich retirees. "We're authorized to offer you $3 million for the entire estate," she said, leaning back. "You could downsize, townhouse, join the golf league." Golf. She said it like she was offering salvation. Miguel didn't react. Just took a slow sip of coffee. "So," he said calmly, "walk me through your vision." Her face lit up. That was the mistake. "The barns lower our property values. The goats, the smoke, the noise. It's all incompatible with the image we're building. Silver Ridge is becoming an elite lifestyle district." She leaned in, voice dropping. "Between us, this acquisition is inevitable. You can cooperate, or we can start issuing citations, zoning, sanitation, noise complaints. We'll make it very uncomfortable for you to stay." There it was, the threat. Miguel set his mug down, still smiling, because what Veronica didn't know was this. 5 years earlier, when Silver Ridge needed road access through his land, Miguel didn't just give permission. He negotiated himself into their company. Silent shareholder, 20% stake. While they thought they were bullying a farmer, they were sitting in the house of one of their own owners. Hit like if you enjoy watching arrogant people dig their own graves. Subscribe for weekly poetic justice, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Veronica finished her speech with the confidence of someone who thought the world ran on her signature. Miguel let the silence stretch, long enough to make Grant shift in his seat, long enough for Veronica's smile to stiffen. Then Miguel stood up, slow, calm, no anger, the kind of movement that made people instinctively sit straighter. He walked over to his old roll-top desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a single dark folder. Thick, heavy, the kind of folder that doesn't contain dreams, only consequences. He placed it gently on the table. "You're right," Miguel said softly. "This is just business." Veronica relaxed. "Just a little. I'm willing to sell for $18 million. Grant laughed out loud. "That's insane." Miguel didn't blink. He opened the folder. Inside, shareholder reports, tax filings, corporate structures, deeds, notarized, stamped, signed. He slid one document toward Veronica. "As of 2021, he continued, I own 20% of Silver Ridge Development Partners, the company that built your entire community." The color drained from her face. That's not possible, she whispered. Miguel turned the next page. And the land your HOA headquarters sits on? He tapped the document. Still under my title. You're leasing it. Grant stood up abruptly. We would have known about this. Miguel finally looked directly at him. You did. You just never bothered to read the fine print. Veronica's hands were shaking now. Miguel flipped to the final section. Section 14 of the lease agreement. If the HOA attempts to coerce, harass, or legally pressure the lessor into selling adjoining land, the lease becomes void within 30 days. Silence. Pure, suffocating silence. Translation hit them all at once. Miguel could legally reclaim the ground beneath their own headquarters and shut down Silver Ridge from the inside, and they had just handed him the evidence. Veronica looked like she was about to be sick. Grant paced. One of the other board members quietly checked their phone, as if bad news could be undone with signal. Miguel leaned back in his chair. Oh, and one more thing, he added casually. The access road you use, that also runs through my land, protected by an anti-harassment clause, meaning if I prove coercion, which I already have thanks to your little speech, I can revoke your right of way. It finally landed. Not just losing the headquarters, not just legal trouble. Their entire luxury suburb would become landlocked. No access road, no HOA, no Silver Ridge. Grant snapped, "This is extortion." Miguel's voice stayed flat. "No, this is business. You taught me that." Then he laid out the cheroot, public apology from the entire board. Veronica resigns immediately. HOA charter amended with a good neighbor clause. New lease for the headquarters, triple the current rate. 3 days later, a hand-delivered envelope arrived. Inside, a formal apology, signatures trembling across every page. Veronica stepped down for personal reasons. Everyone knew it meant public humiliation. 6 months later, Miguel hosted a community cookout. Open invitation, even Silver Ridge residents. He served smoked venison, homegrown vegetables, the same eyesores they once tried to erase. Grant showed up quietly, stood on the porch, watched the valley glow gold. This view's unreal, he muttered. Miguel smiled. It always was. You just needed to stop seeing it as a problem. Because the most toxic people don't lose by force. They lose by contracts, patience, and their own arrogance. If this story made you smile, hit like, subscribe for more wicked downfalls, share this with someone who hates their HOA, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Let's see how far this revenge traveled.